President Donald Trump just fired Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and the official explanation sounds simple enough. But the real story is a lot more revealing about how power, loyalty, and messaging actually work inside Washington. So here's what happened. Earlier this week, Noem testified before Congress about the Department of Homeland Security and its immigration enforcement policies. Now, during that testimony, lawmakers asked about a $220 million taxpayer-funded advertising campaign promoting the administration's immigration crackdown. The ads were dramatic, highly produced, and heavily featured Noem herself, including one memorable spot where she rides a horse with Mount Rushmore looming behind her like a political action movie trailer. Now, when lawmakers asked about the campaign, Noem told them that the spending had been approved by President Trump. That statement turned out to be the problem here, because shortly afterward, Trump told reporters he knew nothing about the campaign. Now, in Washington, contradictions like that can be extremely dangerous. When a cabinet member publicly says the president approved something and the president publicly says he did not, someone's about to lose their job. And on Thursday, that someone was Kristi Noem. Trump announced he was removing her as Secretary of Homeland Security and replacing her with Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin. Mullin is a longtime Trump ally, a prominent Republican communicator on Capitol Hill, and perhaps most unusually for a cabinet nominee, a former undefeated professional MMA fighter, which is totally badass, and depending on your view of modern American politics, either feels perfectly appropriate or slightly alarming. Now, what makes this firing notable is that it's the first cabinet shakeup of Trump's second term. His first administration famously churned through officials at a historic pace, but the second term had been relatively stable until now. But Noem's position had been weakening for months. You see, her leadership of DHS had drawn criticism from both sides of the aisle. Republican Senator Thom Tillis called her management of the department a disaster. Democrats had been hammering her over immigration enforcement tactics for weeks now. And in January, 2 American citizens were killed during federal immigration operations in Minnesota, an incident that intensified scrutiny on DHS leadership. Then came this week's congressional hearing, and that hearing produced 2 major controversies all at once. First was the ad campaign testimony that appeared to contradict President Trump. Second was a dramatic exchange where lawmakers questioned Noem about an alleged relationship with her top advisor, Corey Lewandowski, a moment that turned a national security hearing into something closer to cable news theater. Within 24 hours of that hearing dominating political headlines, Trump pulled the trigger, and the official statement thanked Noem for her service and said she would move into a new role as a special envoy for a regional security initiative, which is Washington's polite way of saying, "You fired, but let's try not to make it look like a firing." Now, here's the bigger takeaway. Trump has always run his political operation with a very clear rule. Policy mistakes can be forgiven. Bad headlines cannot. And once a cabinet official becomes a political liability, especially one that creates the impression of internal disagreement, the clock starts ticking. And in this case, that clock ran out pretty quickly. The next chapter of this story will be Markwayne Mullin's confirmation process in the Senate. Normally, senators have an easier time getting confirmed by their colleagues, but immigration policy is one of the most politically explosive issues in Washington right now, which means that Mullin's hearings could easily turn into the next big fight over border enforcement, executive power, and how aggressive the administration plans to be moving forward. Or in other words, the personnel change might be the least interesting part of the story, because what really matters is what it signals, and Trump is doubling down on immigration enforcement. He's tightening loyalty inside his administration, and he's reminding Washington once again that if your public messaging drifts off script, your time in the cabinet might be very short. I'm Hank, here to explain the chaos, not hype it. If you want clarity instead of noise, you're in the right place.